Every living thing on the planet is the output of a recursive self-improvement loop. Environmental stress hits a population, the weak experience don't make it, the strongest reproduce, the next generation is better. Repeat for 3 billion years, you get eyes, immune systems, an 86 billion neuron brain, and now humans, vibe-coding DNA. This is not a metaphor for what's happening in AI. It's the literal same algorithm, running at a different time scale. The reason it matters right now is that we can finally run this loop on software fast enough and cheap enough that it changes everything. And at the end of this video, I'm going to show you why forgetting this algorithm is the exact reason you might feel stuck in your career or life. But first, if you're new here, welcome. My name is Stefano Pineda. I'm a Navy submariner, and for the past few months, I've been in the trenches building with AI as I prepare to transition into entrepreneurship. I spent a lot of time thinking about how complex systems get built, so let's look at how this loop actually runs. Karpathy called it auto research. You run a model and evaluate the output. The scores feedback into the next one. The loop runs in minutes. It costs pennies, and each cycle the system improves its performance. Musk is doing the same thing with hardware. TerraFab. Design a chip, build it, test it, let performance inform the next design. The loop runs in days to months instead of minutes, but the structure is identical. Generate, evaluate, improve. The timescale changes. The algorithm doesn't. Biology has been running this loop for 3 billion years. Organisms attempt to survive. Environment applies stresses. The next generation inherits a better spec. Same 3 steps, vastly longer cycle time. Same compounding results. The insight is not that these things are similar. The insight is that they are the same thing. Attempt, observe, improve, on repeat. That is the only algorithm that has ever produced anything complex. Here's where most people go wrong. They treat the feedback loop as something to add after their product works. Monitoring dashboard, an analytics layer, a quarterly review, something you bolt on once the real work is done. But building a system this way is like driving a car with a painted windshield and only checking your GPS after the crash. The feedback loop isn't the rear view mirror. It has to be the steering wheel. The loop is the architecture. It has to be the first thing you design, because everything you build after that either feeds the loop or it doesn't. And if it doesn't, you're flying blind. Karpathy isn't paranoid about being behind because he's insecure. He's paranoid because he understands compounding. Every cycle of the loop that your competitor runs and you don't is a gap that widens. The loop doesn't care about your intentions. It only counts your iterations. Now, the loop runs fast on software. It runs slower on hardware, slower still in biology. But there's a fourth category that doesn't fit neatly on that diagram: regulatory time. In a 2003 lecture at Stanford, Musk described gestation periods, the delays you cannot compress no matter how fast you move. A rocket launch delayed for government approval, the drug wait time for FDA clearance, a data center blocked by utility permitting. Think of it like a master chef in a kitchen. A chef doesn't put 12-hour brisket in the smoker and then just stand there staring at it. The cook time is the gestation period. While the meat smokes, they prep the sides, make the sauce, clean the station. Elon's point was exactly this. He doesn't stop work at SpaceX when a launch gets delayed for FAA approval. He doesn't stare at the oven. The delay on one track is not a reason to pause every other track. The team keeps designing the next vehicle, running simulations, testing components. The gestation period on the regulatory side is running in parallel with the improvement loop on the engineering side. This is exactly how evolution works. Natural selection doesn't pause between generations. Millions of parallel lineages are running, simultaneous loops. The gestation period of one organism is the improvement cycle of another. Jensen is doing the same thing at the regulation layer. He isn't waiting for data center zoning to catch up with his plans. He's building at a scale that makes him the regulatory conversation. Stargate, UAE deal, India announcements. Those aren't products waiting for a green light. They're facts on the ground the regulators now have to work around. He showed up with enough momentum that the question changed from, will you be allowed to build this, to how will we accommodate what you're already building? The question I keep sitting with is, when do you earn the right to operate at that layer? My instinct says you need a track record first, but I'm not sure if that instinct is right. Jensen didn't have a data center track record. He had an undeniable product. The unlock isn't credentials, it's leverage. And those are genuinely different problems. This loop doesn't just govern trillion-dollar chip companies and 3 billion years of evolution. It governs you. And whether you are Jensen Huang negotiating with the UAE or someone staring at a blank Google Doc, the rule is the exact same. The recursive loop doesn't care about your ideas. It only runs on action. An idea sitting in a notes app is not in the loop. It's like uncompiled code. It looks incredibly smart on the screen, but until you hit run and crash into the friction of reality, until you start getting error messages and actual feedback, you haven't built anything. Unexecuted ideas have a cost: your attention, your mental overhead, but no return. The question you should be asking about every idea is not, is this good? It's, what is the expected return on the hours I'm trading to run the loop I'm on? Alex Hormozy wrote a series of books about building businesses by doing the exact things he describes in the books. He didn't write about running the loop. He ran the loop on the book itself. The medium was the message and the method simultaneously. That is what it looks like when someone understands this deeply enough to apply it recursively. The most dangerous version of not running the loop is the person who spends 5 years planning to start. The second most dangerous is the person who starts but never closes the feedback arc, who ships and moves on without observing what happened and why. I said at the start I'd come back to this. Don't deny your nature. You are the product of this loop. That is how you learn to walk. You fell, you observed, you adjusted. Nobody handed you a manual. You just ran the loop 1,000 times before you took your first step. That is how you learned to read, to speak, to do every hard thing you know how to do. The mistake many adults make is thinking that they're done, that they've arrived at the final version of themselves. They stay in the same role. They run the same day on repeat, the same 6 months over and over in the same job. When you stop running the loop, when you stop attempting, observing, and improving, that is how you become obsolete. Not because the world moved on, because you stopped doing the most human and living thing available to you: the attempt, the observation, the improvement. That is not a productivity framework. That is what being alive looks like. And when we feel past our prime in running the loop ourselves, we transition to the elder role. We help those coming after us recognize the patterns faster. We compress their learning curves. We let them stand on our shoulders so they can see further than we could. That is how the loop propagates across generations. That is what 3 billion years of iteration produced. This moment, this conversation, these tools, and every extraordinary thing that comes next. Karpathy said he's paranoid about being behind. That's the correct read of the situation. Even the people running the fastest loops feel like the loop isn't fast enough. The only response: design the feedback loop first. Parallelize your gestation periods and never stop running the experiment. Drop a comment. What's your current gestation period? What are you running in parallel? While you wait, drop a like and subscribe if you'd like to see more content like this.